Hello, welcome back to the vault. Glad to have you back on a Tuesday night. Uh, we are getting back into the swing of things with work after the holidays, and to be honest with you, it's a little rough. I'd rather just play games, but such is the life of a guy trying to reach retirement, right? So, anyway, how's everybody doing today? I hope that you're well. Uh, so tonight we have a good show. Hopefully that you'll enjoy. We got a little bit of news. We got a little bit of discussion, and then we're going to dive in towards the end and talk about the For Against Darkness that I've been jumping into. So looks like we've got a couple of folks that are already in. Welcome. Uh, we did some gaming over the last weekend, playing with my normal group, jumping back into D&D, and this coming weekend I've got my other group on Sunday that is going to be, after a bit of a hiatus over the holidays, we're going to be jumping back into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, so the Empire, the Enemy Within campaign. So looking forward to that. Let's see here. So if any of you have anything you'd like to bring up, we'd be glad to hear it. But otherwise, I'm going to probably go ahead and jump into a bit of the news. So let's see here. We've got there we go. So unfortunately, I'd like to lead off with a little bit of bad news. This last week, Tim Kask passed away, and we're starting to notice a lot of the originals from the new year that are starting to kind of to come to the end of things, and it is sad to see. And the original crew from D&D are starting to age out a little bit, and we're starting to notice that. I mean, we've lost Gygax and Arneson, and now Tim. He was the TSR's first employee once they became a company, right? So this coming from InWorld, saying that Tim was a playtester for the early versions of Dungeons and Dragons and TSR's first employee in 1975. He worked as an editor for the company, notably for Dragon Magazine, and left in 1980 with some creative differences around the AD&D. So, yeah, there was some stuff there, right? I think that Gygax was very much pushing the AD&D, and then some of the others were still going with the Beckme stuff. So, but regardless, Tim was active in the convention scene later in life, and I saw many reports from some of the other older players that he made regular stops at a lot of the conventions to play, including the one here locally, North Texas RPG Con, that goes on in April and June timeframe. So, and this kind of brings to mind the fact that a lot of the earlier folks that were here for the beginning of D&D, they're starting to get long in the tooth, and it's kind of a sad day for that. And I'd like to just kind of take a moment to talk about that a little bit. I've been to several conventions, and I go to one every year, and sometimes the older folks, they kind of get dismissed as the curmudgeons and the grumpy old guys, but they got a lot of stories. They like to play. They just want to go and hang out and play some good games and see their old friends and things like that. And we should kind of take the time to recognize what they've brought to the hobby, whether they were a creator in the hobby or just a long-time player, because everybody's got some good insights into things, and they would like to share them if you would only take the time to sit and listen to them for a little while. You know, a lot of, as I begin to get older, I notice I like to tell more stories too. Hence why I've started this channel. But you know, sometimes the old guys just like to be listened to, and we can certainly take some time out of our lives to do that for them, right? So Mark says Tim has a YouTube channel. Yep, right there. So I'm not sure what is Mark. Do you know if he did like regular shows or just kind of haphazardly posted on there? I have not seen his channel, but if anybody's interested, you're welcome to go there and take a look. I'll just leave that up a little bit longer, so in case anybody wants to catch it. But yeah, I mean that's my bit on that. Just give the older folks in the hobby a little bit of your time, and you'll be rewarded with some pretty good stories, I bet. So next one comes from one who is already gone. So this is from Chaosium, and this next year it looks like they are going to publish a novel that Greg Stafford wrote and called A Pyre for Gods and Heroes, which is a novel set in the world of Glorantha, RuneQuest, for the RuneQuest game. Greg Stafford was one of the original creators and founders of Chaosium, which I think I've touched on before. But he wrote the RuneQuest setting, many versions of it, in fact. Same with Pendragon as well. And this is a novel that he had written before his passing, which was a few years back. So it's set in Glorantha, and it says, a generation ago, the sun stopped in the sky, and by the time it began moving again, the world had been changed. A new god had been born, a new empire risen. In the barren hills between Dragon Pass and Prax, those who reject the new ways live scattered and hunted, and soon they will be extinct. For the worship of their chief deity, Orlanth, is forbidden, and without him, an entire generation of boys will never become men. Any who attempt the ancient rites of passage die. Against this stands an outlaw, Varghast Redhand, and a boy who will change the world of Glorantha forever. And that boy's name is Harmast Barefoot. Experience Greg Stafford's legendary world of Glorantha a whole new way. A Pyre for Gods and Heroes. His long-anticipated novel takes you back to Glorantha's first age and into the early career of one of the fabled setting's greatest heroes. So, yeah, Mark, so over 300 videos. Yeah, there's probably some gold to be mined there. Yep, I agree. Yeah, so this novel, I will probably try to pick it up and read it. I have always been interested in Glorantha and the world that RuneQuest brings around, but it is so broad and not just broad but deep as well, the whole setting and lore, that it's a bit intimidating to try to pick up and run as a game. The game itself looks great to me. I'd love to try it, but I've never been able to find a good starting point that I thought would click with my players. And so I think I'm going to pick this up and give it a read and see if it might give me a little bit of insight into kind of the heart of the setting. There's a ton of lore and setting books for Glorantha, but they're written kind of like history books to a degree. And so it's a bit difficult to, like I said, feel what the heart of the game is. So I think maybe that might provide some folks with some inspiration and insight into what Greg's vision for the world was and his vision for the game. So let's see, what's next? We have, okay, no, I thought it might give a date for when this is going to be released, but looks like they don't have a date yet. So they've got an option there to be notified whenever it comes out. So anyway, take a look at that. If A Pyre for Gods and Heroes, if that looks interesting. Next, I found this article very interesting. So this comes from geeknative.com. The unofficial best-selling 2025 releases on Drive-Thru RPG. I'm a regular on there. I look through their stuff very often because it's they've got a treasure trove of not only stuff from RPG publishers, but also from a lot of solo authors and people that are doing it for the first time. And so this list was actually a little bit of a surprise for me, right? So looking at these are the adamantine bestsellers with 5,000 or more sales. And Daggerheart, of course, that is not a surprise because in fact, I just saw a podcast a bit ago that was talking about that they sold through a year's worth of product in 2 weeks. They thought that they had enough product for a year, and they ground through it in 2 weeks, which is insane. So this really should surprise no one that Daggerheart's at the top of the list on Drive-Thru RPG. Not really my bag, but it is for a lot of people, and it's proven that out through sales, right? Critical Role has been a big hit in the RPG world, and it's made a great impression on a very large group of people, it seems. So the other one being Fabula Ultima Atlas. So this is some kind of anime game. I'm not sure. This apparently the kids are playing these things these days. So I'm not sure exactly. It says, It says Fabula Ultima Atlas captures the aesthetic of JRPG. So again, we're talking about stuff, probably like Zelda and Final Fantasy and Secret of Mana and other things like that, right? So, those are the Fabula Ultima is a surprise for me because there has been a lot of good releases this year, and so that one is one that it is certainly a surprise. But what I really was interested in is the next tier, which is the Mithril bestsellers, 2,500 or more sales. And it's not really the names that appear here, it's the type of books to me. So several of these are not even game systems, they're like game adjacent books. So like the No Prep Game Master, the Fat Dragon Guide to Printing FDM Miniatures, and then West March's Campaign Playstyle Guidebook. I'm very surprised that we're getting bestsellers that are not even games themselves. They're, essentially support books for games or the hobby in general. So this goes to a point to something that I've been thinking about for a while is, I don't know what you guys think, but it seems like we're reaching a point of saturation with game systems. There are an absolute ton of them when you combine everything through crowdfunding that's come out in the last several years to, Drive-Thru RPG, proliferating tons of game systems over all kinds of genres. So we have more of them than you can shake a stick at, right? It's insane. And we've kind of, in my opinion, got to a point where we have a very broad ocean of games that's 1 inch deep. And we have a lot of single releases that really don't get much follow-up. The authors are on to the next best thing. They don't really stick with the system. Whereas we used to have a lot less game systems that had more follow-up supplements and so forth. So I appreciate the breadth of options that are available for all kinds of genres and all kinds of systems to go with those genres, be it the crunchy simulationist systems to the more narrative, loosey-goosey systems. There's a lot of options and a lot of variety, and you can find probably whatever floats your boat as far as a setting and style of game. But once you get into them and find one that you like, past the initial release, there's just not a lot of depth to a lot of these. And so the way I feel about it is I like to find a system that I like, and then I like to explore that through follow-on releases. And I know that it makes a big difference to me when I'm looking for a game to catch my interest. I first look to see what is there for it. Of course, if it's a new game, you're not going to have that. But I've started to gravitate towards systems and publishers where you have, if not a depth already, then at least a roadmap for depth, right? And that way you can at least see that the game system is going to have some legs. That is, you see that more with Kickstarters than you do with things released on drive-through, because they often have a roadmap plan built into their crowdfunding campaign. Mark saying it was predicted this would happen after WotC tried to dissolve the 3E OGL. Yeah, you're right. In fact, I remember seeing a lot of personalities on YouTube and everything else talking about that exact same thing, that everybody was going to get off of the D&D train and go their own way. And here we are, right? So the tidal wave is upon us, so to speak. So okay, what's this last one here. So I was hesitant to even talk about this to begin with, but I think that I want to, because I feel that it is important for how we talk about games with one another, and how we talk about just not even games, just our hobbies, right? So this is somebody's Substack, Merc Mail. Don't know who this was, but I stumbled across it whenever I was doing research for this. And, this is, before I get into it, this, what I'm going to go through here is indicative of a mindset that is something that I would like to see reversed. And that's the mindset of people being very, very sensitive and treading lightly to not offend folks. And specifically, in this author of this article is talking about this in using the analogy of ice cream, right? So stay with me on this. It's a little bit strange read, but it's an interesting way to talk about the topic. So this person is advocating essentially the sensitivist narrative, right? So we shouldn't argue that our favorite flavors of ice cream are better than another flavor. Our experiences and preferences about ice cream are not better or more valuable than anyone else's. It's not valuable for us to project why we think chocolate ice cream is better than strawberry. Instead, we should talk about why we love our favorite ice cream. Okay, so again, and we'll see this further on, but this is something that I have run into increasingly about how we should not want to step on any toes when talking about our hobby. I remember the days when I would go into a game shop or talk with my friends, and we would just have a straight up discussion of, my game is great, this other game sucks, and here's why, and then have a good argument about it. Same thing for movies. I don't know how many times I got into the argument of Star Wars versus Star Trek and why one is better than the other. And, everybody has their positions on it. I do, you do, everyone else does. And I don't have a problem arguing about it. But in the end, you smile and laugh about it and move on, because it's a hobby. We're not talking about life and death here. And there's no reason to be so sensitive about it. And as we go on here, you see what I'm talking about. It's just people like things for different reasons. We shouldn't be under the illusion that chocolate ice cream brand that we like is the fancy one, and the chocolate ice cream brand someone else likes is the crap one. Don't be a snob. Well, look at sports teams. Do you think people talk this way about your favorite sports teams? No, it's, the Cowboys are awesome and the best and the Eagles suck. That's just the way that it is. And it's just, there's no reason to be so sensitive about it or to tread around people's feelings about it. This is our hobby. Everyone is passionate about their hobby and how they feel about certain things, and allow that passion to come out. Advocate for what you like. Talk about why it's the best. Talk about why the other thing that you don't like is not the best. It's not going to hurt anybody. And this other thing here was talking about subjectivity, and this is something that I don't really understand the fact, talking about how all these opinions are subjective rather than objectivity. Like here, there's cases when ice cream is objectively bad, and it talks about excludes certain people or represents groups in a derogatory way. All this kind of stuff. It's the feels, right? Getting lost in the feels. Everything is subjective for the most part when it comes to the hobby. Just talk about your game. Don't worry. This is all a big meta discussion, right? It's like a meta argument about arguing, and there's no need to have this. There's no need to be this way. People should. You are in control of your own reactions to things. You are responsible for how you react and how you engage with other people. So if somebody brings up something that you don't like, it's on you to not be super offended about it. Especially when it comes to the hobby topics. And if somebody badmouths something that you love, advocate for it, or just don't engage in the conversation. But anyway, that's how I feel. I brought this up because I saw this article, and it just made me think of conversations that I've seen had at conventions and things like that of everybody stepping lightly and trying not to step on people's feelings, and when you're engaged in your hobby, just have fun. There's no need for all this meta argument stuff. But anyway, okay, off my soapbox. Anyway, that's all that I had for the news right now, and I guess at this point we should dive into the For Against Darkness that I've been going on about. So Friday, on the Friday episode, I went over several of the solo things that I wanted to do this next year, and For Against Darkness was the one that I wanted to kind of really dive into first, and I did so. So, and that's what we'll talk about next. But I got started on this, I guess, on the weekend, and it really drew me in. I made my characters and started reading about it and thinking about it. And the more I read, the more excited I was to play it. So I would say that, in fact, I'll share the book here, but yeah, so this is the new For Against Darkness expanded edition here. And I will say that as I read the book, the author of this writes it in a way that really grabs you and makes you want to play and leads you into that. And apparently, I did not see the edition before this, but apparently this is a brand new one that was created to clean up the formatting of the book and make things a little easier to find and easier to read and better understand the rules. And while reading through the book, I agree with that, but I do have one complaint, and I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way first, and it is the bookmarks. So the PDF on this came with bookmarks in place, but they were out of order and sometimes linking to the wrong things. It was a mess. I spent about 20 to 30 minutes just cleaning up the bookmarks so that I could better organize it and find the things that I wanted. So, if I have a criticism of it, that's probably it right there. That's the biggest criticism I have. But anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that too much because I don't want to take away from the game itself, which we'll go into now. So, the interesting things about this that I'll touch on first, I'm not going to go heavy into the mechanics because what I really want to do is I want to show you how I played it. How I organized things and went about it. I will touch on a few things though, and the first thing, and these are the innovative things that I found interesting. So the first one is the HCL system, and that stands for the highest class level. So the way this works is you have 4 characters, and each one of them are have a level. It's a level-based system. So the levels drive almost all of the mechanics in the game. So many of the enemies, they are statted based on your highest class level or HCL. So a lot of the monster entries will be HCL plus X. So for instance, a Minotaur, I think, was HCL plus 4. So that's the highest class level of your party. So whoever has the highest level, let's say that's a 3, then you add 3 plus the HCL plus 4, so 3 plus 4. So the Minotaur is a 7th level creature, and that level, that's your target number to hit. That determines a lot of things about the abilities, right? And the other one here, the other thing interesting about it is that your level also drives your character's abilities. So if a character is really good at something, so for instance, the warrior class is good at attacking, right? So their attack bonus is plus L, which is whatever your level is. So if your level is 4, then your attack bonus is plus 4. So your level and HCL scale the game as you go along. And that's been a key mechanic. The other one here is the explosion dice. So it is a D6 based system. You roll a D6 plus your ability stat, or your stats plus modifiers, to get your target number, and you compare that to the level of your enemy to see whether you hit. Now here's the really cool thing: if you roll a 6, then the die explodes. You roll another one, and if you hit a 6, it explodes, and so on and so forth. I've seen that mechanic in other games. But the interesting thing here is if you let's say that you're fighting 4 creatures, you're fighting 4 goblins, and let's say that their level is 2, right? So if you have an exploded dice, the points that you get a total to hit does a multiplier against the goblin's level. So if you do 6 points of damage, that's 3 times the hit points of the goblin. So a goblin's hit points is 2, so that's 3 times that. So you're going to kill 3 goblins in one hit. So the more multiples you do, the more points of damage you do. So if you're fighting something that's a creature with a lot of hit points, like a Minotaur, he has a 5 life, for instance, then you're only going to be able to the more times that you double that, the more points of damage you do to it. So if you are able to double that, then you do more points of damage, and you'll see as we go along. But it's an interesting way of handling it. And then let's see. So you choose your starting characters, and you develop your 4, and you pick from the classes. So let me open up the class list here. So here is the class list here on the left in my bookmarks, right? So, there's a large number of them available: assassin, barbarian, bulwark, cleric, dwarf, druid. You have all the traditional ones plus several others. So just as something interesting here, let's look at the rogue. And we're not gonna go through every one of them, but I just want to tell you what each one of them, what an example of one and what it looks like. So there you have your combat abilities. So rogues add your level to defense rolls, and your level to attack rolls versus an outnumbered minor foes. So minor foes are stuff like vermin and goblins and so forth. So if your party outnumbers them, then suddenly your rogue is able to add his level to the attack rolls. And what they're simulating there is the ability to get in behind and backstab, right? But because they're so agile, they get their bonus to defense rolls as well, which not every class gets. No magic items are forbidden. They can use scrolls. They save as rogues. And something interesting for them is they also add their level to saves versus traps into lockpick doors, which of course not everyone gets. So they get, and then it tells you what weapons and armor are allowed, what your starting equipment is, and what your starting life is. And then on top of that, as an interesting bonus is the traits table. Every class has their own traits table, and the rules allow you to either pick one that you like or roll. I rolled. It's more fun that way. And you write in your trait, and that allows you to use it. So a Shadow Walker is what I rolled for my rogue, where you gain your tier to stealth rolls. So your tier is your character's level is broken up into tiers. So levels 1 through 4 is tier 1. Levels 5 through 9 or something. I can't remember the breakdown, but it's a progressive level of tier, right? So that would allow me to get a bonus on stealth rolls based on how good it is. So also on tiers, as your characters get higher, once you get to the next tier, your die that you roll goes up as well. So once you hit second tier as a character at 5th level, then your D6 goes up to a D8. And it explodes easier. So it explodes on a 7 or 8 and not just an 8. So it's a way to scale your character up. Okay, so let's jump over and look at what I did to set up my party. Okay. So I used Legend Keeper. We went over this a couple of episodes back. And this is what I set up to help me play the game, right? So what I did is I created character cards for all 4 of my characters. I've got my name, my class and level, my attack information. I copied and pasted my trait information in there, added my weapons and equipment down there, and then I added a little token life counter for each one of these so that I could click and change the what life that you're at. And I did this for all 4 of my characters. So I have Nurath, an elf who's 1st level, Garrett, who's my rogue of 2nd level. And then I have a 2nd level warrior named Redhelm and a 1st level cleric named Lysander. And so I'll tell you about how leveling works in a minute. It's a very interesting mechanic and a bit frustrating too, but it provides for some interesting depth, right? So I created a character board, and then I also went in and created a separate subpage for each one of the characters. So for instance, on Nurath, my elf, each one of them has an XP and gold counter that I set up. And then as an elf, he can cast spells. So I put in a little tracker to keep track of the amount of spells that he can cast per adventure, and the little notes that might help me during play. So I just went into the book, I copied and pasted things that I thought was interesting and relevant that would help me during play, and I put it in here in Legend Keeper. So I did that for each one. And then I also created a conditions page so that I could track that. And I'll show you what I did to make that work here in just a minute, to make that visible. So if, for instance, somebody gets on fire or is diseased or whatever it may be, I can write that condition in here and it will show up on my playboard. And so that's what I'll show you next. And this is my playboard. So this is almost like a whiteboard that I showed you a little bit whenever we looked at Legend Keeper. So what I did here is I added in this is a window of the condition table that was on the page that we just looked at. So whenever I change the conditions on that page, it will show up automatically here, right? And then I also put a sticky note over here. This is where I keep track of the treasure that I find during the adventure. I just note that there. And I've got several counters here that I'm using to track things in the game. So if I have minions here, so let's say I'm fighting some goblins, right? So, and then I'll change my preferences to paste it cursor. And I just select that, and then I Control C, and then just Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. That way I can set up, and then I put however many life hit points are in the middle here, and then the number of foes is a hexagon like this. And then what I usually do is I copy and paste the foe information over here to the right that tells me about their stats and what they do. I've recorded my marching order here. So when you're going down corridors, you march two abreast. And so I've put here who is marching in what order, and then I can change these if I want to switch that up, especially if somebody is injured and I don't want them up front, then I can change that order, because a lot of times when you run into traps, the guys in the front are kind of at the brunt of it, right? And then also in the last game that I was playing, I got a quest from an NPC that I found, and so I just put that information here. I wrote that up in here, threw it in here, and that way I can keep it front of mind and make sure that I remember it if the situations to fulfill that quest come up later. And then I also created just a little sub-journal here just to write down some things of interest to me that happened. And so, I'll show you how that went in a little bit, but it's just a way to kind of, if you find things that were interesting or noteworthy, you can put it here in the journal. And then I've also created a GM screen, which is also a board. So I copied a lot of the key tables and pasted them in here and created essentially a GM screen for me to use all in one place without having to flip back and forth in the book. And I can just kind of pan here on this and look around, and I'm going to probably expand this and include a few other things that I haven't before, but that's just kind of what I did. Now, what I'm playing is I elected to purchase, and this was only like $2, right? So this is the lead-off adventure called The Caves of the Kobold Slave Masters. And this is kind of an intro three adventure mini campaign to start off with, and I think it was a good buy. I'm glad that I did. So the first dungeon in here is a pre-made map, and so they give you the dungeon there and the locations and what happens where and all that kind of thing to kind of give you this is a good way to get you into the mechanics of it without overloading you with too many, because in addition to the regular play mechanics, there's also a whole set of how to randomly generate a dungeon. And in order to not overwhelm you with that, they start off the first one with this pre-made one, so you don't have to deal with the dungeon generation, or you really just have to deal with running your characters and playing at on the initial stage. So what I did here is I copied that map and I put it in Legend Keeper as a map. So, and then that allowed me to put some pins in place for certain things that I found as I went along. So for instance, when I went in here to this room 6 on the right, I found a pool of water there. And you have the option to drink it, and if you drink it, you roll on the pool table and see what happens to you, right? So I wasn't desperate because it's the first room I went into, so I elected not to drink. And I never did go back there because I was able to finish the adventure, and so I didn't retrace my steps to that location. But anyway, and then over here in room 10, I found a goblin chained to the wall. You had the option to free him, and there was some narrative that went along with that. But, I don't free goblins. Goblins are vermin. So anyway, yeah. So and then up here, a Manicore layer. Yeah, this is a good one. So keep in mind, I'm a brand new guy of 11 of 4 first level adventures, and I wander into this room, and there's a Manicore there, and I saw that. So I escaped from that. So we ran away on the very first turn because I don't think I was quite ready to fight it. And again, I never did go back to kill the Manicore either, because it was a bit of looked like it was a bit of a nasty fight. So I think they threw that in there as a way to let you know that you can retreat from combats. So maybe it's a lesson to be learned, right? So we traveled through the dungeon, and we were looking for this captured character that was from the nearby village that was supposed to be a local protector, right? So you get to the end here, and there's a bridge, right? And you have the ability, it gives you several options there. You can either try to swim across, you can just walk across, or if you have a wizard, you can read the runes on the bridge there. Well, I didn't have a wizard that could do it. So I was left with one of the two. So I tried to swim across, and Red Helm, my warrior, was the one that tried to do this. And so he got carried downstream. I lost 2 lives before I could pull him out. So that was a little unpleasant. So we ended up walking across the bridge, and it essentially did a life drain, and each one of the characters had to save against it. So we get across, and I elected to go in number 9 first. And inside number 9 was a zombie dragon. All right. Now, my elf has a sleep spell that is usually pretty good against, it's a little chancy, but it has the ability to completely eliminate an enemy. Well, it doesn't work on undead or dragons, so that was out. So the cool thing is, on the very first round, Red Helm, the warrior, attacked, and I rolled 3 exploding 6s, and I got the dragon down to only 1 life on the first round. So we were able to get through that, and we went into 12, found the kobold slave masters, and rescued the NPC that we were after. So what happens, right? So you end up, as you kill bad guys, whether it's a minor foe or a major foe, you get experience points for that. And the interesting thing about that is you don't automatically level. You have to roll for it, right? So the way that you do that is it takes a number of experience points equal to the level that you want to get to. And if you spend extra on that, you get a 1-for-1 bonus on the roll. And the roll is that you have to roll equal to the level that you want to go to. So if I want to go to level 2, I decided to roll a 2 or higher. And if you had 3 experience points, you could use the extra one for a +1 bonus on that roll. I rolled to level 3 or 4 times during this first adventure, and I rolled 1s every time for Lysander and Nurath. It was insane. It was so frustrating. Garrett and Red Helm were able to level, but these other 2, I just could not get them to level. Anyway, so I got through the first dungeon with only 2 guys that made it to level 2, but it was frustrating, but it's a very interesting mechanic. Now, then after that, you jump over to the second adventure here, which is the Demon of Kokras Tharn. And so this one is a randomly generated dungeon, as you do in the book. And so now I think what we should do is show you a little bit about how that works, right? So in the main book, you jump down, and there's an exploration section here, and it tells you all about how you do that. So you roll every time you go into a new room. You roll a D66 and look at the list of rooms, and then you draw that out on your map, right? And then you find out what's there. But this section has all kinds of things for exploration, where you can, for wandering monsters, for searching areas of the dungeon. Tells you about secret doors, passages, hidden treasure, and also where is it at? Doors. So when you come up to a door, you can roll on the table to see whether it's locked or if it's trapped and so forth. It's an interesting way to handle that. It tells you about your lighting and traps and that you might find, bashing doors and lock picking doors and so forth. But then you jump down here to actually generate the dungeon in the tile generation section. So this is how you do it. So you roll your D66 and it gives you a little drawing of what to do for the room, right? There's a bunch of options here. Now, the key thing to know about this is the actual size and the shape of these are suggestions. The actual size and the shape of the room is not critical because you do not play on a square by square basis. You essentially are playing room by room. So positioning inside the room is not the key. So when you're creating this map, you can exercise a little bit of artistic flair to look at, to essentially draw your dungeon the way that would seem cool to you. And you can populate the inside of it, with whatever is interesting, that you find interesting, and also by what you find. So once you generate the tile that you're going to draw, then you roll on the tile contents table. So this is a 2d6 roll, and it'll tell you if there's traps, treasures, minions, creatures to fight, anything that you might want, right? And then from here it branches out. So it might tell you to roll on the treasure table, it might tell you to roll on the enemies table, or it might tell you to roll on the special feature table. So things here like a blessed temple or a cursed altar, different things like that you can find during play. Then there could be a special event. You could have the Lady in White appears, which is what happened to me, and that's how I got that quest. Or you meet a wandering healer. There's a number of things that can occur there. And then they break it out by dungeon type. So you have dungeons, then you have caverns, and you have fungal grottos. So there's 3 different environments that you can play in. And the cool thing is when you're exploring, if you ever find a secret passage, it allows you to switch to a different type. So for instance, if you're in a dungeon and you find a secret passage, it can lead you into a fungal grotto. And so suddenly you're rolling on a whole separate set of tables. So if you roll a treasure, then you'll roll on here. And then usually it tells you, depending on what environment type, what the treasure is that you find. So for instance, if you roll a 4 in a dungeon, you're going to find a jewel worth 2d6 times 5 gold and so forth. If it's magic, you'll roll on the magic treasure table. Then if you're in a fungal grotto, there's rare mushrooms, cavern special items, rare items, quest tables, epic rewards. And then there's a dungeon traps table, cavern traps, grotto traps. There's a table for every situation, right? And then you jump into the monsters. So you can run up against vermin, minions, and then weird monsters and boss monsters. And so usually the boss monsters and some of the bigger ones you'll see here, like for instance, let's take the ogre as an example. HCL plus 4. So highest class level plus 4. It has life tier plus 4. So if your characters are tier 1, then it would have 5 life. And its attacks inflict tier plus 1 damage. And then also, if you choose to not fight and to see how the creature reacts, you would roll on the reaction table. So if you rolled a 1 with an ogre, then you would have the option to bribe him for 30 gold pieces. And then he becomes peaceful at that point. So these tables are how you generate each room and play through the adventure. Now, that's on a completely random dungeon. Then you have a whole section in here after that for fiendish foes. This is an expansion to the original tables. So if you want to, you can start rolling against these foes, these alternate foe tables for a more challenging experience, and it gives you a lot more variety. Now, there's tons of expansion material out there for this, and they're all relatively inexpensive. You can do, and it's called like the Twisted series. You can do like Twisted Dungeons, Twisted, all kinds of things. So it expands the dungeon options, the monster options, traps, treasure, anything you can think of. It provides expanded charts to roll on, and the depth of the game will increase. Now, the really cool thing for me on this was the adventure that I was doing. So, for instance, in this initial pre-plotted dungeon, you don't roll on the tables in the book. This adventure comes with its own custom table, right? So at the back here, it provides the chapters 1 and 2 demonic minions table. So it has a special set of thematic options here that you roll on for the enemies. The chapter 2 demonic boss table. And this tells you the bosses that you can find in chapter 2. And so that way, if you buy a pre-published adventure, all it does is it plugs in the new charts and the new maps, if there is a map, and then you just run your standard rules against the new charts. And it's a great way to expand the breadth of the game and get a completely different narrative experience out of it. Okay, the last thing that I kind of wanted to go before I answered any questions on this is how am I writing dungeons? So I originally thought that maybe I would sketch it down by hand, but I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. So I found this program called Dungeon Scrawl. And this is Dungeon Scrawl. So this is a very inexpensive, very simple map making tool. And this is for the published module that I was using. The second dungeon is random generated, and this is what I generated. So as I played and rolled the little random modules, I drew them out here in the software, and then I would put little doors in place and so forth. And then I would use the text tool. So this was the first room that I came in, the one with the stairs here. And the way that I rolled it, it had 3 doors to it. And so I drew the doors in, and then as I checked each door, I made a note. So I checked this one and found that it was locked, and it's a level 7 lock. So I chose not to go that way. And as you can see, I went this way, right? And then here I found the lady in white who gave me the quest. And this is where I ended up and am at currently here. So I haven't put a lot of detail in here because I was just having so much fun playing that I didn't really stop to make a lot of notes or anything of what I found in each one. But I will say the very first entry room that I came into had a Minotaur in it. And it was way over my level. So I decided I would try to see how it reacts rather than just attack it. And luckily, I rolled that it could be bribed. And I spent the money and bribed it. So I got past the Minotaur and was able to continue on. But it was just an interesting aside there of how you can deal with some of the threats that you come up against. But just to show you here, it's super easy to, this software is cool. So you do like the cavern here, right? So you come over here and I'll select a polygon tool, and I just create kind of the general shape that I want of the tool, and then I double click to set the room. And then the further I drag away from here, the more fractal it makes the walls. So there's a room, right? And then I can take the freeform tool and just kind of cut little passages off of it like that. And it's so easy to make this, and it's so simple. And there's several different styles here: the old school blue and white, and different types of dungeon walls and stuff. And then for instance, you want a door, you just pop up over here the door tool, and I just drag a door across, and there's a door. So, is it super detailed? No, but it's really kind of cool and gives you a visual, a little visual style there of what you want to do. If I wanted to, let's say I wanted to do something like one of these more standard dungeon rooms here, like this one, I'll jump over here and I'll do the rectangle tool, and I'll just drag it, and boom, there's a room, right? So it's a cool way of doing it. But, you know, to each his own. If you want to, almost everybody else that I've seen that does this uses graph paper, and they draw really nice artistic dungeons and stuff like that. I'm not an artiste, so I'm really kind of looking for function over style. And this allows me to quickly get, you know, map out what I'm doing and just get to playing. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to show you. Anybody have any questions or thoughts on this? I will say, you know, that it was my experience with this. I probably spent 4 hours playing this so far, and it has been extremely fun. I mean, it's amazing how much I've gotten into the characters. You know, as simple as they are, and the fact that I'm playing solo, you know, each one of them has already developed a little bit of a theme, kind of, you know, based on their trials and tribulations, right? So it's been, you know, and this is all headcanon, of course, right? But it's been fun to play. The mechanics are really smooth. There's a lot of variety that I've found so far. And when you throw in like one of these published dungeons, it provides a narrative that is really pretty engaging, and it gives you a theme, you know, some kind of story to go against, so that you're not just, you know, doing random dungeon crawls. So, you know, if this seems interesting to you, jump over to the For Against Darkness website and take a look at what they've got to offer. They sell directly on their website. They also sell through TTRPG, and you can get the books not only in PDF, but they do have printed versions of the books as well, if you're interested. Let's see here. So, for instance, this is one on drive-through here called Wayfarers and Adventurers. So this expands the character types that you might be able to have, gives you additional traits tables. And then, like over here, here's Twisted Hordes. So this is a book that adds a random table of mundane magic and special items for your For Against Darkness adventures. From food items to kitchen silverware, from explosive pumpkins to wearable werewolf fangs. There's a little bit for everybody. So there's expansions to the options. There's published adventure modules. Any number of things are available. I think the next one that I'm going to pick up that I saw is about settlements. So it allows you to create a little town that you can go and visit, complete with NPCs and shops and things like that to give more flavor to the in between adventure, the in between the dungeons phase of the game. So Mark says, nice tool for those of us who are artistically challenged. No kidding. Yeah, it is. It is a lifesaver, because otherwise I just end up with a written block dungeon on graph paper, and that's no fun, right? So, yeah. But anyway, so that's For Against Darkness. You know, verdict for me is very fun. If you're looking for something to just do on your own for a couple of hours, you can easily sit down and run through a dungeon in about a couple of hours of play. It's not hard to do. It's easy to track. Most people use, you know, physical character sheets and all that, but I kind of like to be organized, and that's why I use Legend Keeper. But anyway, if you like it, give it a try. If you played it or something like it, comment. You know, if you're watching the show afterwards, let me know what your thoughts are on it. Let me know what you think about the show tonight. So if there's nothing else, then I guess we'll wrap up. We're at an hour, so that's kind of where I wanted to be. Thanks for your time tonight. I hope you found the show interesting. And if you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up, and give me a subscribe if you find this channel interesting. If you didn't like what you saw, then I appreciate your time that you did spend, and hopefully we'll see you again where you might find something that you like in the future. So Have a good night, and we will see you on Friday.